Hey, this is Mike the Run Testers. I am by the mall in central London trying to look for a quiet spot to record. I've just finished the London Winter Run at 10k, a race I've done a fair few times. I think the team had done a fair few times as well, so I know the course well. A good opportunity for me to test some new kit that I've got in at the moment. The big one really being the Hoka Cielo X1 2.0. I've just kind of finished up testing, and this was a good way to round things off and see how it fares at kind of, a race distance in that kind of race scenario. Elsewhere, I also had the Beats Powerbeats Pro 2, which myself and Nick have already reviewed on the channel, but this is a good way to kind of test it in a race scenario, mainly focusing on the fit and the sound as opposed to the heart rate. Elsewhere, I was also testing the Amazfit Active 2, a kind of £100 or sub £100 smartwatch that has full maps and doesn't have dual band GPS, but has a lot going for it to be a good value kind of sports watch, smartwatch and running watch. So I've given that a spin against the Garmin Fenix 8X with a Polar H9 monitor chest strap. So it's getting a bit windy and cold here now. I'm going to wait till I get back home, kind of give you kind of a bit of a review and recap of how I got on with the shoes, most importantly, the other kit I tested and how I got on at the London Winter Run at 10k. So it's actually the day after the London Winter Run 10k. Now, before we get into how the shoes and the other kit that I tested fared during the race, let's talk a little bit about the race itself. Now, this was the 10th edition of the London Winter Run, and if you've done a race in central London, then this course and route will feel a little bit familiar. So I'm talking about things like the Saucony London 10k, which is now, or previously was, the Asics London 10k, things like the London Landmarks, and also the London Marathon. Now this year there were 25,000 participants for this race. That does mean a lot of waves, a lot of different start times, and it is really crucial that you do put yourself in the kind of correct wave, because as I found, it can feel very congested those first few kilometers of the race. And it did require me having to kind of jump up on the pavement a fair few times to kind of get through in and out of the crowds. Now, it's a very twisty, turny course that enables you to see quite a lot of those kind of central London landmarks in a short space of time, but that is something to keep in mind with this race, and it kind of does open up in places and then gets you back kind of nicely to the finish line, which is very close to the start line. So in terms of how I got on, I think I ran 42.29, 42.30, I think around that basically. Not my quickest on that course, but very happy given that this was a kind of unplanned race, got a kind of a last minute bib through, so very happy with that given the congested nature of the start of the course. And it was a good opportunity, I think, for me, and a good race to test the Hoka Cielo X1 2.0. Now, I have raced in the Cielo X1 as well. My first race was a 10k race, different course to this, but a good opportunity to see how the Cielo X1 kind of fared on those kind of shorter distances. Now, my takeaways, or biggest takeaways from the Cielo X1, was that it was a very lively, fast, bouncy shoe to run in, but I definitely appreciated it more for my longer runs, definitely my kind of faster, longer runs. Now, I do think that has changed here with the Cielo X1 2.0, and I could see that in that race, that, it is, I think, from the fact it is definitely more aggressive, more rockered, lighter than the Cielo X1 2.0, and I think it brings it more with shoes like the Vaporfly 3, things like the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3 as well, the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris, which I think those shoes definitely are marathon racers, but I think can work really well for those shorter distances. And I think that would apply to the Cielo X1 2.0 for me in this race. I think what I found is, you get up and you're running hard, that you'll be rewarded with a shoe that just kind of rolls you through very nicely. As I mentioned in my first run video, I definitely found that cornering could be a bit challenging in the shoe, given the more aggressive, kind of more unstable nature of this shoe. That's definitely something that was really tested in this course, which has a lot of twists, kind of sharp twists and turns to kind of get you back onto the course. And I felt like I really had to kind of really go on the outside of the kind of most runners, trying to get myself back onto course and to kind of carry on running hard in this shoe. But it felt ideal for that shorter distance. I think that was the biggest takeaway for me. And it really kind of illustrates the changes that Hoka's made with this shoe, that it is more aggressive, more propulsive, and probably is going to be a lot more versatile and, across race distances compared to the Cielo X1. So definitely a positive experience for me. I definitely found I could run hard and fast in this shoe. definitely is less stable than the Cielo X1. If you can ride that out and you can kind of work with those, you know, that kind of light, slightly less kind of stable feel of this shoe, you're definitely rewarded, I think, for a very enjoyable, kind of fun, bouncy, lively shoe in the Cielo X1 2.0. So into the other kit that I was testing, I'll start with the Beats Powerbeats Pro 2, which myself and Nick have already reviewed on the channel. I think it's fair to say we were fans, you know, in general with most of what we got on the Powerbeats Pro 2, definitely a good upgrade on the Powerbeats Pro. Now, we talked a little bit about the heart rate, or kind of a lot about the heart rate and the execution of that feature, and probably the weakest element of the Powerbeats Pro 2 wouldn't be, for me, the reason to go for these earbuds. So I kind of put that to one side and really focused on what these would deliver in terms of fit, in terms of sound performance, in terms of battery life. Now, I'm someone that uses the AirPods Pro 2 for races. I have done 4 races before, and I feel, you know, they offer a very good experience. But given these earbuds are kind of that ear hook design, definitely designed to be more reliable and more kind of, you know, workout and exercise kind of focused, this is really what I wanted to see from the earbuds myself. Now, usually I would have these in kind of noise cancelling mode. I decided to have them in transparency mode, and, you know, so I could hear some of the crowd, and it was a very well supported race as well. I would say first and foremost that the fit was fantastic, what I expected to see, what I've seen in my other testing. They did not budge, they were very reliable in terms of that secureness. Sound performance was very good. That transparency mode performed very well for me. I think what I really kind of appreciate, particularly from someone that uses the AirPods Pro 2 a lot for races and running, is that the buttons for the controls are a lot better. And there were times when I did just kind of want to skip tracks that I was listening to on a playlist that, you know, I didn't, you know, particularly want to listen to at that time. It's very easy to do that on these earbuds. I think I'd feel more reliable doing it at a faster pace compared to something like the AirPods Pro 2, which I do think the controls are very good on those earbuds, but I just think they're better executed here on the Beats Powerbeats Pro 2. Sound quality was fantastic for me. I think that's definitely a strength here for the Beats Powerbeats Pro 2 compared to the previous versions. Battery life, I think it was a drop of about 15% with that transparency mode for a 10K race. So kind of just under an hour's use. That's kind of what I expect to see. So a very good experience with the Beats Powerbeats Pro 2. As I said, put the heart rate to one side, focus on the things that I think that Beats and Apple have done really well here, and I do think you get a really good set of earbuds. I think I would probably opt for over the AirPods Pro 2 just because that more reliable fit and the buttons, which I think work for me if you are the kind of person that does find they have to kind of interact or kind of play around with playlists or what you're listening to during a race. Now, I was also testing a new smartwatch, and that was the Amazfit Active 2. Now, this is a smartwatch that costs less than £100, has all that you need to track your runs, and most notably has full offline mapping, and that is free to access. Now, it's very rare to find that kind of support here on a watch at this price, and we've seen it well executed on the Amazfit T-Rex 3, which costs more money, but it's definitely a smartwatch that we would recommend for, particularly for Android users or people who are looking for an Android option at a more affordable price than things like the Phoenix and other kind of outdoor watches or smart watches. Now, the offline mapping wasn't really a thing that I needed to kind of look at here on the Amazfit Active 2. It's really kind of focusing in on the GPS performance on a route that is going to wreak havoc with your GPS just because there's so many tall buildings in this kind of central London course. Looking at the heart rate monitoring as well, and I had the Garmin Fenix 8X on my other wrist, and that was paired to a Polar H9 heart rate monitor chest strap. Now, starting with the distance tracking, now as I mentioned, there was a bit of kind of darting and weaving on this course. Probably did cover a lot more of this course than, you know, kind of was marked out. And you do have some problems with the kind of satellite kind of pickup as well. Now, on the Amazfit Active 2, it kind of tracked me at kind of 9.97 kilometers, so a little bit below that 10K distance. But the Fenix 8X, you know, kind of clocked me over 10K distance. As I said, that's probably down to the fact that I was kind of covering a bit more of the course and kind of having to kind of jump in and out of the crowds. Now, they did both suffer at the same parts of the course, around the 6K mark, where there are, you know, it is a kind of bad spot for GPS in general. Had me running a lot quicker on the Fenix 8X. On the Amazfit Active 2 had me running a lot slower at that point, and it did start to kind of level up. I mean, the pacing wasn't absolutely identical on both watches, and it definitely had, you know, their kind of issues on both fronts. But look at the heart rate monitoring now. Looking at the data, there was definitely some issues with my heart rate monitor at the beginning of the race, definitely very low. I think put that down to kind of cold conditions and where kind of, you know, starting the race, definitely kind of picked up and kind of fell more in line with where I would expect the heart rate to be. Now, what I did see in the graphs looked similar, but the heart rate average is definitely a lot higher on the Amazfit Active 2. I think the max heart rate was probably a little bit higher as well. Battery life was, you know, pretty good. I think, you know, given that this doesn't have, you know, this isn't a huge battery kind of power kind of house compared to something like the Phoenix 8X, where, you know, the battery drop was so small for that kind of 40 minutes kind of plus of running, where compared to the Amazfit Active 2, it was a lot bigger and kind of what I expected to see. So it wasn't a horror show. You know, definitely had some areas where, you know, it did kind of falter a little bit, but it, you know, it wasn't alone in that compared to the other watch that I was using. And I feel like for general running, it's probably going to be solid on the whole. And, you know, when I get into kind of further testing, I'd like to see how that full mapping support works. And if it works as well as it does on the T-Rex 3, then this could be a smartwatch that has the, you know, run tracking capabilities to be a good watch to grab. Okay, so they have it, a 10K race test of the Hoka Cielo X1 2.0. Now we will have a multi-test review on the way. Some of the testers are just finishing up on those last few runs, and we'll have a video up on the channel of that. We will have a review of the Amazfit Active 2 as well once we finished up on testing. And if you want more videos on the Beats Powerbeats Pro 2, let us know about that as well. As always, like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about our latest videos, and yeah, we'll see you for the next Run Testers video.